Yes, I saw that. I've replied to them. Thank you. So, yeah. Uh, okay.
Okay, we are live on YouTube.
Okay.
Same here.
All right. Well, welcome and bienvenue to another NeuroTech San Francisco Hack Night. NeuroTechX is an international community that facilitates the advancement of neurotechnology. Our pillars are community, education, and innovation. We have chapters worldwide, a number of meetup events, and a thriving online Slack community. So check in your local community, see if there's already a NeuroTechX chapter. Check your college or university and see if there's already a student club. Very happy to help you get one started if there isn't one already. Definitely sign up on Join Slack. You can find links on the meetup agenda and at neurotechx.com. Check out learn.neurotechx.edu for the online educational platform. You can sign up for the newsletter and check out the NTX Services job board. All right. So super exciting this week to have Ryan Field joining us from Kernel, Kernel Flow product manager or project manager. So yeah, really looking forward to that. And it was also, or I think it's somewhat relevant, and I've mentioned this to John and Jaden. The Project Amber kind of post mortem. It was kind of billed as like we're gifting this to the mental health community, but it seemed a bit more like or certainly Jamie Tyler on LinkedIn was like they've crashed into the rocks of psychiatry, and
yeah, there was some discussion going on our work Slack back and forth, and it was considered a bit ominous, seeing as we're kind of somewhat working towards depression biomarkers and EEG and with AI and whatnot, and it was like Amber plus Google plus DeepMind plus a team of engineers, product managers, and all these things, and it didn't sound like it was a small operation, or they didn't release any details, but those guys were.
Yeah, first I was like, whoa, they're just releasing something for free, and then I read a little more, and I was like, Google tried, and they
yeah, it's like if Google can't, then
well, I mean, let's not read too much into it in the terms of
no.
It's a super big company. God knows what the like how much kind of force and momentum it had behind it, because it wasn't tied, or it doesn't seem to be tied to what we know that Google's doing in terms of mental health, which is like big focus on what do they call that, kind of like digital tracking your cell phone, tracking your watch, learning, but from 10,000 people, they're doing like really fine-grained assessment of your activities and things, such that they can then have this kind of normative database to say like, oh, your activity is that of a depressive, right? Like
just look at your Google searches when you're sedentary, and they're gonna know. I mean, they're gonna have a pretty good hint of why you're sedentary at that time. Like if you're Googling what to do for broken arm, I mean, they know you got a broken arm instead. You're not
Right.
depressed in that scenario.
No. I mean, this is kind of the point, right? Is that and to some degree, although I'm sure they don't want to talk about this, externally, but like they could be, using all the Google devices to also just see like how much you're hanging out in your living room at home, and your bedroom, or and but the point being that like this X company, has a lot of kind of blue sky projects that don't necessarily, we don't know how much momentum it actually had. And I got it seemed like there was a number of people who were just really happy that they could be public about what they'd tried, and the archive paper is definitely worth looking at, because it's not your standard ml of EEG, or
I actually haven't looked at the paper yet. I know you just put it in the chat, but like, what would be your quick summary of it?
well, I mean,
Did they have any novel processing or machine learning approaches? Signal processing?
They're definitely, I mean, it's novel in the sense of like it's stuff that DeepMind's develop. It's like things they're building on some of their own tools in terms of techniques. But what was certainly interesting was that like they were definitely trying to incorporate, what we might call your typical mental health workup, right? So it's like, I mean, it's a little closer to the kind of Child Mind Institute workup without being like the Child Mind Institute workup, which is like a multi-day affair, which like nobody really does that for mental health patients, right? But yeah, and then there's
going for engagement. I know you're saying like the Child Mind Institute is a pretty involved thing, multi-day hours of testing. How many hours were they going for per subject?
What, Child Mind Institute?
No, Google for the Amber thing.
And let me just flip my.
I mean, did they say you have to wear the device an hour a day every day? I don't know. I'm just curious.
No. That's a good question. I did not. I don't remember seeing anything like that. I mean, they're trying to do a standard.
Data were collected as part of a mental health study across multiple laboratory sites. The multi-site aspect, blah blah blah. Participants N equals 758. Age 16 plus minus. What? No, age range.
Can you drop the link in the chat, Morgan?
I did. It's the archive paper there link.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So check it out. It's what I would call an N170, but what they include is also a lot of the additional workup. And I haven't had time I'm not sure what the symbol concept association network, which again is like, it's one of this Irina Higgins papers that they seem to be like, I'm not familiar with a beta variational autoencoder. Is there an alpha, or?
Not sure.
Is that somehow uses a beta distribution? Like, I could guess, but anyway, I'd love to see what they're doing, because again, I think it's still possible that there's some interesting stuff in what they've released.
Yeah.
Even though it wouldn't be, I think, bad to say that like it's, depression EEG is hard, you know, and I've certainly commented on Slack because a couple of people have asked about depression EEG, or I remember that person asking about depression TES, and then but they wanted the TES to be closed loop when you detected depression. And I was like, well, first of all, how are you going to detect, detect periods of depression? Oh, okay. Not sure we have anything there. And, and then even if you did that, like, what are you targeting and why? But
I'm looking at the design of this study. I'm not feeling like they've been around the houses, done everything you could possibly think of, and obviously they'll have done a bit more than this, but they've done like you said, a kind of M170 type ERP experiment with a couple of hundred people, with a specific
So
image
this
set.
is the summary paper of Amber, pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay,
Or at least
I'll keep this open then.
It's the summary paper of their kind of like their analysis work associated with the project. It's not clear to me what's Project Amber and what's like what's the hardware, or if like this is all one project. But this is the analysis.
I wasn't aware that ERP responses to emotional images were even considered a potential biomarker for depression.
Sure, I think there is some
Of the
literature
EEG biomarkers there are.
I mean,
it's more like power and alpha asymmetry and things like that.
I thought there was, well, I thought there were, again, thinking about more behavioral studies than say EEG studies, like say mislabeling emotion in faces between depressives and controls. Like, or at least that was my guess at what they were going for, which was like somewhat like the what's the guy Stoddard, that fastball paradigm where he's like he's throwing up faces and scenes really fast, but you can also play with the emotion, affect associated with those. Do you remember this? I mean, he was doing it more for dementia. I remember his first name.
These processing methods look pretty advanced. I mean, they're quoting stuff from 2017.
Right. Well,
and they're saying, of course, you can use LDA SVM. Of course, we use. Huh?
Well, 2016 is like 100 years ago in ML.
Really?
Well, it's like, didn't it like, DL start in 2012? I mean, like, or
if that's the truth, I don't know why it took so long. Maybe physical computing.
Basically, yeah.
That's
kind of sad.
What a lot of people would say.
We've just been shoving cores everywhere now.
I mean,
here's 1,000 cores. Here's another 1,000 cores.
Hey, Morgan, I think I remember a study or something similar to what you were describing, which is basically they show various photos of either positive or neutral or negative, and they're definitely like more behavioral studies, like you were saying.
Yeah.
And the idea is to see like how strongly they respond to the positive, how negatively they respond to the negative, and do they have like a mild response to the positive versus like a strong one, stuff like that.
I mean, it's something like that, or that would be my guess, in terms of what got them started. And,
Right.
Again, like you have this nice effect where, face area just happens to be nice and detectable behind the ears. So, again, like if you're also perhaps thinking about a low channel count system, I mean, I was super curious about the hardware. Hey, Josh, did you check out the actual hardware specs?
I haven't yet.
No, okay. I mean, I couldn't. Let me see what's here. Okay. Oh, is this is? Oh, really? Okay, yeah. I recognize some of these. Oh, is this like 10? This is this month?
What's this?
Interesting. Well,
Patents.
check the chat.
Talking about patents.
Yeah. My
Who's
daughter is
sync?
calling. Just one second.
Who's sync? Hi, sync. Or do I know sync? I just don't know. Do I know sync? Thanks for the patent links, sync.
Hey, Jaden and John, I'm seeing they're mentioning an autoencoder. Is that something that's been standard for some time?
Autoencoders themselves have been fairly. I mean, I don't know what standard is really, but they've been used for a while.
When were autoencoders? When did that kick off? Do you think? Do you think that was around 2010 as well?
Let's see.
I mean, them being used widely.
It says an AE was parametrized. I've never said that to anybody. To have 2 convolutional encoding layers with 32 filters, each of size 6. Blah blah blah.
Let me see if I can find one.
I mean, yeah,
So
like
is
the
this
overall
just
design.
a convolutional network
use,
configured a certain way?
you use
I guess I can look it
autoencoders
up.
to do feature extraction, or feature selection and dimensionality reduction, and it's kind of an alternative to doing a PCA in a way, kind of nonlinear type of dimensionality reduction. So that's generally where autoencoders fit into analysis pipelines, is like somewhere at the front that does some what would you say,
Labeling?
unsupervised learning.
Is this like
Autoencoders are
unsupervised
unsupervised.
labeling? Morgan's shaking his head. Yeah.
I'm nodding.
Oh.
Or am I
An
wrong?
autoencoder, what an autoencoder is, it's a
What is it used for EEG?
two-layer neural network,
Okay.
2-layer or 3-layer, where you have you kind of constrain the things that come out to be the same as the things that come in, and you funnel it through the hidden layers, and so the hidden layers have to kind of compress and then decompress the some representation of the input in a way that's sufficiently accurate for it to be reproduced in the output. And the number of units you have in the hidden layer effectively gives the dimensionality that you have to encode it in. And you can kind of flexibly specify the bandwidth effectively, or the dimensionality of your compression with the number of nodes in an autoencoder. I am not an ML expert, so if that was like a reasonable description of autoencoder, I'd be super happy.
Yeah, it was. They're commonly used in like
that's what I was going to ask
network
next.
and like image and video masking networks, because what you're doing is say like you want to mask people walking through a video. You're breaking down the dimension,
like a blob,
the features
where
of
the
each
person was?
person essentially is the like the shrinking portion of the network, and then you're blowing it back up to reproduce the image with the mask on it. So you're taking those specific features and reblowing them back up to the size of the image. And according to a few sources, it seems like the first development of autoencoders for training artificial neural networks was in 1987. So they were pretty standardized.
For training. Cool. Got it.
Yeah.
So just sorry, one thing that I skipped that we usually do, and is definitely like to give everybody a chance. So please, if it's your first time here, please introduce yourself and tell us what brings you here, because I'd be very interested to.
Yeah, that will be me, I guess, among others. Hi, I'm Nicola. I'm a neuroscientist at UCSF in San Francisco, and I study language processing in the brain. And I just kind of stumbled upon the group, and I thought it might be interesting to meet everybody and see what you guys are talking about.
Definitely. And are you doing neuroimaging?
Yes, I do neuroimaging. I did some EEG early on. I do TMS, but most recently more fMRI in combination with machine learning and deep learning. Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome.
What kind of aspect of language are you working on?
Mainly semantics, so meaning representation, but also learning. So one of the studies that we're working on now is tracking the kind of neural representations that develop in children in San Francisco immersion schools as they learn, for example, Spanish English or Chinese English at the same time. Or just monolingual, and so then we scan them and do behavioral testing at like different intervals over several years. Yeah.
Awesome.
So are you part of Brain Lens?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
So who are you working with?
Fumiko's lab. Fumiko Huft.
Huft. Right.
Yeah.
Can I ask
cool.
a super quick question? Seeing I've got a person who does language who works in meaning. I don't know. Yeah. Okay. So I did my PhD partly on this actually with Lorraine Tyler, and we were working on partly on language and kind of difference between syntax and semantic processing in the ventral and the dorsal stream. So is that kind of where auditory streams, should say? And we were obsessing a lot around what parts of what you hear gets kind of funneled up over the top, and what parts of what you hear gets funneled up underneath, along the medial temporal lobe, down to the temporal pole versus over to the frontal cortex around the top. Is that the kind of systems that you're working on as well?
Not necessarily, but I guess there's some relevance. I mean, looking more at the kind of distributed representations associated with different semantic categories. And then I guess depending on what the semantic category is, you might see the different streams activated, right? So if some of the studies where I worked on action language, definitely you see then these more dorsal parts, including the motor cortex. But then the anterior temporal lobes and I mean the whole middle temporal area is very kind of semantics and conceptually driven as well. So I don't know that you can really separate that cleanly. At least in my research and the kind of stuff that we do, we don't really see that. But yeah, so I'm not quite sure.
Well,
but then also I don't work with syntax a lot.
Yeah, you don't. I think the connection that like Greg Hickok would make is to kind of connect motor components of language parsing to action. Right. So there are things like activation of the motor cortex when you're hearing a phrase like kick the bucket, right, is somehow you're tapping into your motor system vicariously, effectively, or metaphorically. And that's kind of the thinking around a lot of the the kind of dorsal motor system aspects of some language parsing, is that it's like you're bringing in your motor system to interpret the symbols of the words that you're hearing.
Yeah, I mean that makes a lot of sense to me, even though it's not directly my area of expertise. But definitely some research that I did with TMS, where we kind of knock out the primary motor cortex, we see that that has negative effects on people being able to learn new verbs or process existing ones. So there definitely seems to be some linkage there. Yeah.
Cool.
But yeah, nice to meet everybody.
Yeah. Well, we're here every week, and
Awesome.
yeah. So I just wanted to. Well, would anybody else like to, who's here for the first time, like to introduce themselves? And it's not a requirement, but I did. Oh yeah. Oh
Hey.
well. Yeah.
I'm going to talk later. Hi. Nice to see you all.
I'm glad you could join us, and yeah, we were gonna introduce you later.
Okay, I'll wait for that.
Yeah. No. It's
Welcome,
awesome.
Ryan.
Just, I mean, I don't know who posted the links to these patents, but it's super interesting in terms of the Project Amber work, because it does suggest that they were, well, like they might have released some implementations, but they've certainly patented a lot of stuff. I will say, as somebody who's been looking at EEG patents since the 90s, like there is prior art on all of this stuff. But
Does that negate the patent when they open source it?
No, well, so I mean, what's on GitHub is separate from this, or like they don't have to be connected, and I haven't even checked the paper in terms of in terms of what's in this beta variational autoencoder stuff or scan. Like, I don't know if there are open source implementations of that or how much that's even used in these. Like, so I'm afraid Sync might have left, but super interesting. Like I didn't realize that they were actually going for these patents. And again, like on the discussion, a few people chimed in on Jamie Tyler's comments on Project Amber, and one of those being Martin Arns, who people might recognize from brain clinics in the Netherlands, but also he's on that paper with Amit Etkin at Stanford, so that like the EEG,
Depression biomarker thing. Yeah.
Well, it's like not so much depression biomarker as Martin says.
Treatment
It's
response.
like, prognosis and like treatment response, right? So anyway, I mean, it's interesting it will be interesting to get into this, because I mean, some of these were posted like last month.
I noticed that the citation for the second one I have open is Kyle Mathewson. Other references, like 3 papers from Kyle Mathewson.
Oh, really? They're using Kyle's papers?
Yeah.
As references? No way. That's awesome.
Stimulus alpha and visual. Yeah. Just small up.
That's where did I see? Yeah, he'd popped up in something like I found an email from 2012 where we were talking about a Kyle Matheson paper. Yeah, so I haven't actually looked at these yet, but interesting. I mean, I'd love, again, like I said on Slack, like I'd love to get the backstory on this Project Amber now even more so, because it's like, well, they went to the, I mean, this is kind of what X is supposed to do, though, right? It's basically supposed to file patents, file for patents, and maybe they don't have any real interest until somebody comes along and says, like, hey, I'd like to buy those. I dropped in a link to another archive paper, though. Speaking of autoencoders, I'm gonna see if I can get this. So this is actually somebody in. So I'm trying to remember the. I think it's Wu. I mean, sorry, Wei Wu is in Emmett Etkin's lab and on this paper. And I mean, it's super interesting paper. I'd love to dig into the details of this in terms of how they're using this as a source modeling paper, because it seems super solid, but I have questions about how you'd validate this.
Yeah, we looked at this in detail kind of recently. Did you put the link in? You mean the Wu and Etkin like Embark? Yeah. So they have. I mean, I don't know if you could pull up like there's one figure in the paper. It's a diagram of the analysis.
Is this so? This is the source imaging one, or is this one of their depression treatment response papers?
Well, it has both in, right? They have a method for it's kind of an ICA type latent space model.
Yeah.
That they use. So I think I saw the Nature Biotechnology one that has a diagram, and that's the one that was all this data showing that this and the EEG signature to this antidepressant sertraline predicts outcome, and so on and so forth. But the analysis in the paper is kind of interesting. It's not this one, but maybe,
not this one. Okay.
No, it's Nature Biotechnology. But what they do is they have like they go from the sensors to a latent space.
Yeah.
And then in latent space, they extract the frequency component. They do a frequency decomposition.
Yeah.
And then they map and then they do learning on these in this latent space, but then they kind of map the features back into channel space, and then eventually into brain space through the weights that they learned for the EEG kind of sensor model. And it's interesting. I kind of have issues with how they describe it, because they're saying that it kind of gets around volume conduction and things like that. Like, oh, you're just doing a PCA. Like PCAs don't deal with volume conduction. They just give you a piece of principal components.
Yeah. Well, but it
seems to work.
I mean, it's this, this ICA idea that, ICA gives you dipolar sources, right? And I understand your,
I don't think, if they were just doing that, then but it's not, because it's like a neural network latent space. Actually, it's some kind of linear latent space decomposition. But
if you can find, or if you don't mind showing me a link to that, because sounds super interesting. Or
I mean, I don't want to derail the schedule, but I can definitely pull it up.
No. We were. I'll just cover a couple things that. We've got a pull request on Moab, and for those that are interested in looking at the mother of all BCI benchmarks, and in particular adding SSVEPs and their pipelines. Sylvain's pushed an update that gives us a couple new data sets. We've got we've got some documentation to build on for adding new data sets, and that's something we'll be looking at. And I don't know if Rashik is on, but
I am.
Okay, great. And we're going to be trying to find the kind of like equivalent, IPython notebook example for adding new pipelines. And just wanted to say at least something, or get get it in the conversation that Brain Hack Global will be coming up in about a month, and I think, well, Sebastian was pointing out the fact that like it's NeuroPS is going to be like December 7th. Anyway, like obviously a lot of people in the ML world are going to be busy with NeuroPS, but there'll be time to do something before that, something around EEG notebooks. And what we're hoping is that we could also add Moab, adding data sets and getting at least the documentation for adding pipelines as something that we could build a brain hack, a local event. And by local, I mean a distributed event that is, kind of like hosted by NeuroTechX, which I think that'd be awesome. John, you're going to do something in Toronto?
Yeah, we're doing an Ontario brain hack. I mean, obviously, as you indicated, it's open to the entire world. But it's.
I mean, are you drawing on? You're drawing on more than just University of Toronto.
Well, the reason why it's Ontario is because we're teaming up with Western, who've done brain hacks. So that we're the two, like Toronto and University of Western Ontario, in London, Ontario. So we're kind of teaming up with those guys and doing a joint thing, and we decided to call it Ontario Brain Hack.
Well, so Roshak's in McMaster.
Yeah,
right?
I was wondering when when will it be held?
Good. Yeah. So I was just going to get to that.
Yeah.
Do I have it in my calendar? Because we agreed this. It's definitely early December. I have a feeling we were looking at either from the 2nd or the 9th. In fact, like I'll dig it out of my emails, like exactly when we're doing it. But there's some period of 3 days or so in early December, and I'm going to be organizing or trying to pull people in to do an EEG notebook sprint, and I want like as many people from as many places around the world to chip in on that. We may kind of extend it out if the compressed period, people kind of want to do that in a brain hack fashion, but want to do it over a longer schedule. But I'm kind of blocking out a few the 2 to 3 days of brain hack to really organize things. So that's going to be where there's going to be the most activity. So I'll tell you shortly on this call like exactly when it's going to be. And yeah, so Morgan, there'll be like a focused EEG notebooks sprint in a brain hack happening in early December. And I would be actually very happy if for example, we decided to do a kind of NeuroTechX brain hack thing to do that at the same time as the Ontario brain hack. Yeah. And then just there's no reason why not, right? Unless people...
Absolutely. Yeah. So no. And honestly, I think it's better to just nail down a time. And if you've got one, then super. And we'll go with that. And obviously with people from like Moscow around the world, back to India, people could be joining in at like any time.
Yeah. I would be absolutely gunned if we got people tuning in over those 3 days from everywhere, from many places.
Great.
And I think there should be enough interest. So I'm gonna start kind of shouting about it soon. And hopefully we can get some kind of solid commitments from people. But it is happening, and it's happening in early December.
Hey John, when you said jam on like EEG notebooks, did you mean to improve functionality or add functionality, or to doing recordings together?
Mainly kind of hacking and adding functionality, but that's definitely an option as well. And in fact, both of those would be equally valuable, I would say. And even it would make sense for people to try and do a bit of both, and that'll probably be the most fun thing for people to do. But
Awesome.
the question of like exactly what we do, that's something we're gonna have to kind of have some discussions around. We have to strategize a little bit because we can't have a sprint that has like 50 different things going on. But we can only have like 5 different things going on, and then I'll try and like marshal the groups or something like that. And so we'll figure out exactly what. But I do think some combination of tightening up things that need tightening up, adding cool new things, and getting data collection. Those will be the 3 types of things that we'll be broadly trying to do.
Well, if anybody has OpenBCI gear, maybe I could try to be around the first day to make sure nobody hits any stumbling blocks.
That would be amazing, Richard. Yeah, if you don't mind, that'd be
brilliant.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't think he said when it's going to be, but at the very least, I could try to be there the first day to help out.
I would also like to join.
Yeah, thank you, Jaden.
That's awesome.
Glad you said that.
So let's yeah, I mean, I haven't heard anybody, any of the other chapters are necessarily going for something, but I also don't know how many of them actually, or how many of the kind of the researchers read the X leads, and whether it should like ping some of the other kind of like more research groups in, say, Berlin and Moscow, and I'm trying to think. I mean, I definitely have I mean, Roberto Toro is interested in doing some sort of brain hack thing, because they never ended up doing a Hackoween, by the way.
It would be neat. I don't know if anybody's done it, but since they're more, didn't the India chapter just get like a bunch of life in it? Yeah, like the Catholic Church. One of their things is like there's mass all day, basically, if you just go to a different time zone. So we could do like a 1-day hackathon where it's full 8 hours in one time zone and another 8 hours in another.
I mean, it would be. That's what I was thinking. It would be cool if like kind of like every time zone or a couple time zones just took 2 hours of that time, and maybe not to push them to like fill that with speakers, but at least try and reach out to the research communities in their local area and see what they're doing, and see if they could reach out in particular to ones that'd be interested in this EEG notebooks and BCI. Sorry, did somebody?
Hi, Morgan. So Hela from like India chapter, and we're really excited to be here. And
awesome.
I just heard us being called out it, and we would be really happy to also participate. And definitely a 2-hour event seems super exciting, and we have seen a lot of very like interested people coming up. Cool. So I think if we can start like promoting it, well in time, we should be able to garner sufficient interest. Sure. And have those, people. So definitely let's come up with a plan and, maybe a date, the way John was mentioning. And
very cool.
Yeah, absolutely. We're really excited about it.
Okay. So before we lose the thread, I found in my recent emails. So yeah, December 2nd to the 4th. This is when we're doing the Ontario one.
Okay, perfect.
There'll be some. So a thing we can think about is we'll be doing some event stuff in the Ontario hack that will have some educational stuff and some speakers, and be running crowdcast, and we'll be doing so something we can think about is whether to kind of chime in with that or kind of just do it, have another load of NTX stuff that is scheduled around the same time, and just try and kind of intersect them time wise. Yeah. And anyone but basically anyone who's interested in doing any organizing, reach out, and then we'll talk about how to organize things. Otherwise, I'll just put the focus on organizing the sprint aspects of the EEG notebooks hack project, because that'll be a lot of work for me as well.
Yeah. No, that's great. So yeah, I mean, let's that helps give us some form, and we know what to kind of Abby joined us as well at Paris on Monday. So yeah, I mean that's another great site with a lot of interested EEG people, I think, and Barcelona is coming up as another group to talk to. Okay. So it's getting close to 7. I just wanted to ping is Ryan Sternlick.
I'm here.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, Ryan Sternlick and Alex, if we could stop our streams.
Sure.
Okay. Stream is being stopped. I'll let you know when it says it's been stopped, as well as the recording.